Hello and welcome to a brand new week. This is Network Africa. Coming up on the program, the Egyptian parliament gives a nod regarding the controversial anti-terrorism law. Could it be enforced sooner than later? Then the race against extinction goes on as we highlight the poaching crisis, looking at measures to counter the vice. And later on, the United Nations accuses troops in Burundi of gang raping women while carrying out their duties. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the program. Hope you had a splendid weekend. This is Network Africa on Channels Television with me, Cynthia Are. Just before we bring you the latest regarding the Egypt anti-terrorism law, here's a quick look at the top 3 stories which made headlines on the African continent this past weekend.
On Friday, January the 16th, the United States expressed its concern that the electoral environment in Uganda was deteriorating in the run-up to the elections next month. The issues causing concern range from numerous reports of the police using excessive force, obstruction and dispersal of opposition rallies, and intimidation and arrests of journalists, which have contributed to an electoral climate of fear and intimidation. The election is expected to be one of the toughest yet for 71-year-old President Yoweri Museveni, who is a key Western ally who came to power after waging a 5-year guerrilla war. It was nothing short of a bloody Saturday in Burkina Faso, where 23 people were killed in an assault by Al-Qaeda fighters on a hotel in the capital. The president described the attack as cowardly and vile. Security Minister Simon Compaore gave clarification on which countries the 23 victims were from, but gave no further details on the matter at that time. On Sunday, Somalia's Al-Shabaab terror group said it had captured some Kenyan soldiers during an attack last week on a military base in the west of Somalia near the Kenyan border. There was no immediate comment from the Kenyan military or AMISOM, the African Union force in which the Kenyans serve. Both have offered limited information about the attack. A Kenyan official said on Sunday the army would issue a statement without saying when.
Now, the Egyptian press might not have much freedom to work for too long now that the Egyptian parliament has endorsed the highly controversial anti-terrorism law which first surfaced last year. The endorsement was overwhelming after 457 votes were recorded in favor of it, as opposed to 24 who were not in support. There was no amendment whatsoever to the original decree issued by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi last year. Having said that, let's give you a better understanding of the features of this highly controversial law. Now, here's what it looks like. There's approval to set up special courts depending on the situation or the allegation leveled against a certain individual. Also, enforcers in those courts are shielded from legal ramifications. In addition to that, sentences for anti-terrorism related crimes range from 5 years to the death penalty. Journalists are fined for contradicting authorities' version of any militant attack. The military and police are also shielded from legal penalties for the use of force. Human rights groups accuse President Sisi, who as a military chief deposed a freely elected Islamist president back in 2013, of rolling back freedoms won in the 2011 uprising that toppled veteran autocrat Hosni Mubarak. For more on this endorsement, we go live to Cairo, where the Voice of America's Iranian is standing by. Edward, thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you.
Same here, Sid.
Indeed it is. Now, I have to ask, now that the Egyptian parliament has overwhelmingly endorsed this controversial law, to say the least, how long do you think it might be before we see an enforcement?
Well, I'm just speculating, but I would say the law has been on the books. It was issued as a decree in February of last year by President Sisi. It's been enforced nominally, one assumes, as much as they intend to enforce it, really. I think it's there mostly as a deterrent. I don't know that they're really expecting to use it to the full extent of its written text. But of course, one never knows. I would have to be a prophet to tell you that I could see what they were actually going to do with it.
Now, in the event that this is actually enforced, which most people are concerned about, including the Human Rights Watch, what would it mean for press freedom? Because one of the features is that the government, the press is not allowed to contradict any statement released by the government regarding a terrorist attack. I hope I'm not taking that out of context, but what would that mean for press freedom if it's enforced?
Well, I think much of the press is self-censoring it right now. I mean, people are much more careful about what they say and what they write. Perhaps I am as well. I don't know for a fact that that's the case, but I don't personally expect them to come after me, so I can't say I'm really worried about it. But at the same time, of course, any infringement of one's freedoms is unpleasant. That being said, getting killed by a bomb is also equally unpleasant, if not more so.
Now that the military and police are covered by this law and not accountable for the use of force, what do we expect to see play out?
Well, I think there have always been excesses by the police in Egypt and probably in many other countries as well. I don't know that they're going to increase. I think it depends on the velocity of the sort of simmering conflict that's going on with the Islamists. Now, if they increase their attacks, I think then one has to worry that the government is equally going to increase its pressure on them. So I think it depends on both sides of this equation, really.
Edward, finally, we've already seen that the Human Rights Watch is clearly against this law, saying it's an infringement of human rights. But in the event that this is enforced, is there any individual or group that could potentially ensure that it's not necessarily enforced?
Well, I think the press in and of itself has always acted as a counterbalance, counterweight to the government. Yeah, I don't even think that's stopped since this decree was issued last year. I think whenever the government has overreacted to something, the outside world has intervened and the government has backed down if it's been seen as excessive. So I don't know that there really is going to be any increase, drastic increase of tyranny, other than the fact that if there is an increase of violence, then perhaps the government would come down harder. That's possible.
Well, in your own words, Edward, only time will tell regarding what happens to this law. But thank you very much for joining us again on Network Africa. The Voice of America's Edward Iranian reporting from Cairo. Stay with us on Network Africa as there's more to come, including the real cost of poaching. It's a race against extinction as the situation worsens on the continent.